If you happen to be on vacation this past week and you came back and you're like, what the heck happened in AI? Well, you're not alone because even if you were following what happened in the AI world every single day for the past week, you're probably also wondering what the heck happened. I mean, OpenAI inked a deal with the Pentagon when it didn't seem like that was going to be possible after Anthropic and President Trump and the Department of War were bickering over AI basically all week. And then you got Nano Banana 2 come out. That's the best AI image model in the world. And all of big tech, well, they just decided that they were going to release actually useful agentic AI all at the same time. So, yeah, if you're feeling a little behind on what happened in AI this week, you're not alone. Jump on the bus. I'm driving. All right, let's get into it. If you're new here, welcome to Everyday AI. My name is Jordan Wilson, and this thing's for you. Everyday AI is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping everyday business leaders like you and me keep up and get ahead with everything that's happening in the AI world. So it starts here, but to take it to the next level, make sure you go to youreverydayai.com. We're going to be recapping today's show as well as giving you all the other AI news and developments you need to know to be the smartest person in your company. So a lot happened this week. Absolutely bonkers. All right. So if you are brand new here, most Mondays we do the AI News That Matters show. All right. But we do this everyday AI thing Monday through Friday. So let's get you caught up. Like I said, even if you were paying attention, yeah, a lot happened this week. So let's get to the AI News That Matters. Well, first, OpenAI announced their deal with the Pentagon after one of their chief rivals, Anthropic, had been publicly bickering with the Department of War and just the US government at whole. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman announced the new agreement between OpenAI and announced the agreement with the Department of Defense that will allow the Pentagon to use OpenAI's AI models on its classified network. So this development comes as OpenAI's rival Anthropic failed to reach a similar deal with the Pentagon, leading to escalating tensions in a directive from President Trump to phase out all federal use of Anthropic's products within 6 months. So the Pentagon's push for quote unquote all lawful purposes access to AI models sparked some debate, with Anthropic drawing a hard line against uses such as mass domestic surveillance and fully autonomous weapons. All right, so more on the Anthropic versus, well, I don't know, the US government angle here in a little bit, but a little bit more about OpenAI's deal and the response so far. So more than 60 OpenAI employees and 300 Google employees signed an open letter supporting Anthropic's stance, urging their companies to prioritize ethical boundaries in military AI use. So Altman emphasized that OpenAI's newly reached deal includes protections against domestic mass surveillance and requires human oversight for any use of force, including autonomous weapon systems, aligning with stated safety principles. Reuters also reported that OpenAI's agreement includes a contract enforcement lever for OpenAI that they can say that if a breach happens, it could terminate the contract kind of on their terms. So OpenAI said it will build technical safeguards and deploy engineers alongside Pentagon staff to ensure their AI models are used safely and as intended. Altman said OpenAI pushed for the same terms that was included in their deal to be offered to all AI companies, calling for de-escalation and reasonable agreements instead of legal battles. And obviously, this announcement came just before news broke of the US and Israel governments beginning military action against Iran, adding to the urgency and scrutiny around AI's role in national security decisions. So, yeah, this one was not really expected, right? We're going to get to what happened a little bit more between Anthropic and the US government, but kind of over the weekend, we got this announcement from OpenAI that they had entered into an agreement with the federal government, which part of it seemed like kind of out of nowhere, right? But it also makes sense because reportedly some big AI leaders are going to be meeting with US President Trump at the White House this week. Anthropic was notably not on that list. So maybe this makes sense. And obviously, a lot of people are like, oh, this deal came about very quickly. Probably not. Right. My assumption here, I don't have this on any source necessarily, right? But my assumption is these talks had been ongoing for a very long time. And kind of looking at some of the comments that Sam Altman made over the weekend, he kind of did an AMA, ask me anything session in Twitter, kind of showing that there's been a lot of thought that has gone into this, and it wasn't just in response to Anthropic and the U.S. government not reaching a deal by the deadline that the U.S. government had imposed on Anthropic of Friday. So maybe it wasn't kind of the knee-jerk reaction competitive move that a lot of people think it was, although it might kind of seem like that on the surface. But if you know anything about the government and how it works in these huge contracts, you know that they generally take many, many weeks of work, sometimes more. So I'm sure that we'll get more reporting. And this is one news story that is definitely not done. And oh, hey, I should shout out. Good morning, live stream audience. Good to see you, Dino from Italy, Dennis from North Carolina, Joe from Florida, Jose from Santiago. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, if you listen to the podcast, maybe on Spotify, Apple, this thing is also a live stream every single day, 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the other big AI news story of the week, and that was, well, U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered every U.S. federal agency to immediately stop using technology from Anthropic, giving agencies like the Defense Department a 6-month window to phase out the company's products. This is huge news. All right, so a little bit more on what the heck happened this past week. So the White House's decision follows a standoff between Anthropic and the Pentagon after the AI company refused to allow its technology to be used for fully autonomous weapons or mass domestic surveillance of Americans. So Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth responded by designating Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security, stating the Pentagon would transition to another provider within 6 months. So Anthropic, which signed a $200 million contract with the Pentagon in July, said it will challenge the supply chain risk designation in court, calling the move legally unsound and a dangerous precedent for American companies negotiating with the government. Anthropic also said the impasse was over two specific requested carve-outs to the lawful use terms, which were mass domestic surveillance of Americans and fully autonomous weapons. And this was not a blanket refusal of defense work from Anthropic's side. So Anthropic responded to the Trump ban by stating it had not even received direct communication from the Pentagon or White House, right? And they said they kind of just found out with the tweet or the post on Trump's Truth Social network, and they vowed to challenge this in court. So Trump accused Anthropic of putting American lives and national security at risk by insisting on its own terms of service and vowed never to do business with the company again. So the dispute highlights growing tensions between big tech companies and the U.S. government over the ethical use of AI, particularly for military and surveillance application. Also, there's been some noteworthy reaction to OpenAI's deal and Anthropic's refusal, because over the weekend there was a ton of, not just talk, I'll call it much more than that. There's a lot of online kind of backlash against OpenAI for entering into this deal with the U.S. government, and a lot of support for Anthropic refusing to do so. So much so that you had, kind of noteworthy names in the AI field. You had celebrities, right, posting about this, but it did actually, not that this is important, it did catapult Anthropic's Claude app to the top app in the U.S. on the Apple App Store, which hasn't happened before. What also hasn't happened before is, I believe, is a U.S. company getting the supply chain risk to national security designation. This is an enormous detail. Again, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks and months and what happens, because this definitely will be challenged in court. But essentially what this could mean if it is fully enforced, that Anthropic, could in theory lose a lot of its current business deals, because if current companies who do work with the federal government are still using Anthropic, well, that means that they would no longer have those deals or that work with the federal government. That's what this means if this is actually enforced, which could impact hundreds of companies, right? That both have contracts with the federal government, but obviously still use Anthropic's models. So this is going to be, I think, a straight up fight, right? We'll see what actually happens from it being enforceable, because, like I said, Anthropic said that they didn't even really get official designation of this. They just got, word like everyone else via social media posts. So we'll see. I do expect this to go on for quite a while. All right. Well, now getting away from super serious stuff that affects, I don't know, the global peace and, maybe AI making decisions on the battlefield. Well, let's get into things that are maybe less important, but still noteworthy if you follow and work in AI. That's because Google has unveiled Nano Banana 2, a new AI image generation model that delivers high reasoning, accurate text rendering, and creative control at half of the cost of its previous pro tier model. So the new Nano Banana 2 is built on the Gemini 3.1 Flash backbone, offering images in the API at 50% or half of the cost of the Nano Banana Pro model with better results. So Google's new Nano Banana 2 model took home the top benchmarks for AI generation on Arena, formerly LM Arena, which had previously all been held by OpenAI. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, right? Obviously, Nano Banana went super viral, Nano Banana Pro. And then with Nano Banana 2, well, actually, Google was technically behind on some of these head-to-head blind test benchmarks, and the general internet at least slightly preferred OpenAI's image generation models. Well, not anymore after Nano Banana 2. So right now, this is available by default, which is pretty big, in Google apps like Gemini, Search, Ads, and even the new Flow product for most users worldwide, as this has rolled out to 141 new countries already and is available in 8 languages. So if you are a Google Gemini subscriber, whether on the Pro or Ultra plan, you can access Nano Banana Pro for specialized tasks just straight inside of Google Gemini. So Nano Banana 2 supports full aspect ratio control with resolutions from 512 pixels all the way up to 4K, and introduces 2 quality settings to balance speed and image fidelity. So Nano Banana 2, some of the new features or big upgrades. It significantly improves adherence to complex prompts, capturing nuanced requests more reliably than prior models. So the model also now enables accurate, legible text generation and in-image translation, which is pretty cool, addressing a long-standing weakness in AI-generated visuals, and can maintain subject consistency across up to 5 characters and 14 reference objects. And one of the coolest things of all of this, which is like one of those little footnotes, but I think is really powerful. Well, there's a new image search tool, which allows Nano Banana 2 to retrieve and ground images as context for generation from search, expanding its utility for complex enterprise workflows like storyboarding and product photography. So I don't know, live stream audience, I'm always curious. Are you guys interested, and podcast audience, feel free to leave me a comment. I go through and check them all on Spotify. Are you guys interested in learning more about Nano Banana 2? I'm always on the fence, right? Because when the original, AI image generation boom happened, I don't think that the actual models and capabilities were useful enough for the everyday business user, right? Obviously, if you work in marketing, content creation, right, the original Nano Banana and ChatGPT image were great, but I don't think it was really for the non-creative. But I think that's really changed, right, in the past couple of months, in terms of what you can accomplish with these models. And I think Nano Banana 2 obviously takes that to the next level, right? Even with things that I just said, like better text rendering, being able to ground images in Google search. And a lot of people are thinking, oh, it's just some high fidelity, cool looking image. No, right? This is obviously something that can power infographics, individual learning, right? It can really, I think, change how your company communicates with consumers whose attention spans are obviously getting shorter and shorter, and who demand, well, let's be honest, more personalized visuals. And I think now we finally can get AI images that don't look AI, where, 6 to 9 months ago, even though the models were great, they still had a very AI stink to them, right? Not in a bad way, but let's be honest. All right. Angie at least says yes to more Nano Banana. So does Jonathan. All right. We'll see. Maybe we'll do something in the coming weeks, just a non-technical or non-creative guide to Nano Banana Pro. Or sorry, Nano Banana 2. The updates come so fast, it's even hard to keep track of the names. All right. Well, here's something unlike AI images that may or may not affect every single business user. This one definitely will. So OpenAI has announced a new multi-year partnership with 4 major consulting firms: Accenture, Boston Consulting Group, Capgemini, and McKinsey and Company, to help deploy its enterprise AI platform, Frontier. So the move marks a significant push by OpenAI to scale up its business with enterprise clients, which already accounts for up to 40% of its revenue. So Frontier, which was unveiled earlier this month, is designed to integrate and manage AI agents across company systems, making it easier for businesses to automate tasks and harness AI more efficiently. So these consulting firms will work directly with OpenAI's engineers and form dedicated, certified teams to implement the technology in real-world business environments. So OpenAI's chief revenue officer, Denise Dresser, says the partnerships leverage consulting firms' deep relationships and expertise with large clients, helping to meet the high demand for AI solutions. So the consulting partners will receive access to OpenAI's product roadmap, technical resources, and research teams, ensuring they stay at the forefront of AI developments. So this alliance comes as OpenAI competes with rivals like Google and Anthropic for enterprise market share, intensifying the race to lead in AI adoption. So, not to say I've been screaming about this for a very long time, but I've been screaming about this for a very long time. And it's not surprising at this point, at least. Maybe it was surprising if we had this news headline 18 months ago, but I've already said this. The consulting industry is going to get wrecked, right? Completely. And it might look more like this, right? With big consulting firms, the global juggernauts, right? Like Accenture, Boston, BCG, Capgemini, McKinsey, etc., entering into these huge agreements. What you should be keeping an eye on, right? Not just if you work in one of these companies, maybe you engage them for work, right? Are we finally going to get away from the billable hour from consulting groups? Are we going to be moving to an output, getting charged for outcomes? I think probably, right? So take a look at what these 4 companies do in terms of how they communicate about their AI offerings and services, because the reality is, and I've been saying this, today's AI technology, I don't think most people, unless you listen to the show every single day, unless you're using the technology every single day, I don't think most people realize that, well, today's agentic AI systems are much better. Yes, they are much better than the average skilled human worker at even producing outputs, right? And in the consulting space, let's be honest, a lot of what's done there is research, putting together spreadsheets, gathering insights, putting together PowerPoint decks, right? These are all things that off-the-shelf models can do by default with a single prompt, right? So you could make the argument, and there are, kind of blind benchmarks that prove as much, that basic models that all of us have access to are better than human experts. So it is going to be telling, I think, what comes out of this new partnership, the Frontier partnership with at least these 4 big consulting firms. And make sure you go back and listen to our 2026 AI prediction and roadmap series, because I talked about this specifically. I haven't talked about it at the end of 2024 in my 2025 AI predictions, but I do think that this is going to be the next big straw that shakes up knowledge work in general. Because the reality is, whether you work at a consulting company or not, I don't think that at this point next year, people will still, right, even in industries like legal, accounting, finance, etc. I don't think that companies are still going to be able to charge that same price, that same high hourly rate that has come to define the last generation of knowledge work. It's going away. So pay attention to what happens with those 4 companies. All right. Our next piece of AI news, which technically happened like 6.5 days ago, but it feels like 6.5 weeks ago, but we have to mention it. So this is big. So a major new report from Anthropic has sparked global concern over the security of American AI innovation, as Anthropic claims 3 top Chinese AI labs extracted advanced capabilities from its Claude model illegally through distillation. So Anthropic publicly accused Chinese companies DeepSeek, Moonshot, and Minimax, 3 of the leading Chinese AI labs, of using 16 million prompts and more than 24,000 fake accounts to extract and copy Claude's most advanced features. So the labs reportedly use a technique called distillation, which means they're training their models on outputs from Anthropic's models, effectively cloning Claude's capabilities for the Chinese companies at a fraction of the cost and time. So Anthropic said that this activity was detected through IP addresses and metadata, with Anthropic stating that one proxy network managed over 20,000 fraudulent accounts simultaneously to avoid detection. Anthropic's not alone, as we talked about in our episode last week when we covered this, as OpenAI and Google in the same 2-week period both reported similar attacks, with OpenAI sending a memo to Congress and Google identifying over 100,000 distillation prompts targeting their Gemini model. So it's important to keep an eye on this story, because Anthropic's market share on Open Router has dropped sharply from 40% a year ago to, well, it depends on the day you look at it, but more like 9 to 13% today, a loss that could represent hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars in annual revenue. And as Anthropic prepares for a reported IPO in 2026, this is going to be huge, because even though we've seen recent reports that Anthropic's monthly revenue and annualized revenue is still growing month over month, it's growing at a much slower rate. So I think that we're starting to see some of the leading factors of that, such as, right, their Open Router share has gone down significantly. So Open Router, if you don't know, well, they are the leading third-party provider. So for the millions of companies that are building AI into their products and services, well, a lot of them use Open Router. It allows you to more easily use multiple different services, swap, Anthropic in for Gemini for Anthropic, vice versa, right? So they have great data on where the industry is heading. And Anthropic, for the most part, has been the leader on the API side, the developer side. And we've seen now these new Chinese companies with their models have become leaders in this space. But Anthropic is saying, well, they're only leaders because they copied our models. They distilled our models. So distillation is actually a very common practice when it comes to the company itself, right? So we've heard from all the major AI labs saying they use their big models and then they use those big models to distill smaller models that then they use and they produce those, right? But it is not normal and technically, well, legal for other companies to distill from American companies. So right now, there's really no international or even domestic laws preventing this kind of model distillation. And enforcement is especially challenging when foreign actors are involved. So the US government has attempted to slow China's AI progress through chip export controls, but distillation offers a fast and cheap workaround for Chinese labs to catch up or surpass American models. And y'all, I talked about this last week, so go listen to episode 720 if you want the deeper dive in this. But this impacts everyone. This does not impact you just if you work at one of these companies or if you're using these models, to build something at your company. One of the biggest reasons is this is going to have, if this continues at the pace, right? Like I said, it had kind of been a well-known fact, but it wasn't really talked about until early 2026. And in February, right, we got public statements and confirmation from the big three players in Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic. And if this continues, what this essentially does, well, you have the biggest AI labs then doing all of this work, and then their Chinese counterparts essentially undercutting them and being able to, provide models that have 99% of the capabilities for 1% of the cost and 1% of the time. So when we talk about how AI is used across military applications, which is just like what we talked about earlier. So not only does this take away a competitive advantage for American AI companies, but this also provides other countries who may not exactly be on friendly terms with the US access to technology that will likely be used to power their military decision-making. Right. And that's where I think a lot of the focus has fallen over the past year or so. And I've been saying this for a very long time. Artificial intelligence and having access to the most capable models is more important. Maybe this doesn't seem as crazy when I first said it like 2 or 3 years ago, right? But access to the best AI models is more important than a company's military, their access to natural resources like gold and oil, all those things. Having the best AI in the world is much more important because it does lead to artificial general intelligence. It leads to artificial superintelligence, and whatever companies can get there first have essentially an unfair advantage when it comes to being the future global superpower. All right. So now let's get to more things on the agentic side. All right. So we have a lot of stories here that all happened at once, which was surprising. So let's first talk about Microsoft. So they announced Copilot tasks. So this is a new AI system designed to handle time-consuming tasks for users in the background. So Microsoft says that Copilot tasks offload work from your device to Microsoft's own cloud-based computer and browser, freeing up your machine for other activities. So yeah, essentially scheduling AI agents to go do your work for you and not having to clog up your own computer's resources. Sounds awesome, right? But unfortunately, hardly no one has access. So Copilot Tasks is currently in a limited research preview with access restricted to a small group of testers for now. And you can, go sign up to be on the wait list like I did. But I'm guessing that this is going to be a very, very slow rollout. But looks pretty amazing. So users can assign Copilot tasks to handle jobs like scheduling appointments, generating study plans, organizing subscriptions, and even canceling unused services. So the AI can turn emails, attachments, and images from your inbox into slide decks, and it can surface urgent emails and draft replies automatically. So Copilot Tasks is capable of planning events such as birthday parties, from booking venues to sending invitations, and can monitor apartment listings and set up tours on a recurring schedule. So Microsoft says users can describe what they need in plain language, and assigned tasks can be completed once on a schedule or as recurring tasks. The system will always first ask for permission before taking significant actions, such as making payments or sending messages to ensure user control and security. So this was not as like awesome and amazing as that sounds. This was barely the third biggest piece of news or AI developments over the past week, just when it came to agentic AI features. All right, because our next piece of AI news, probably way bigger, and the availability is, well, more available. So Anthropic has introduced a scheduled task feature for Claude Cowork in the desktop app that enables users to automate complex multi-step tasks using AI. So this works a little bit differently than Microsoft tasks. So some overlap in terms of features and some unique features. So here's how it works. So Claude Cowork now allows users to schedule recurring tasks, such as generating daily briefings based on Slack messages and emails, conducting regular competitor analysis, or even just organizing files on your computer. So the service runs in a dedicated virtual machine separate from the main operating system, enhancing security and preventing unwanted access to sensitive files or system functions. Users must give explicit permission before Claude Cowork can take any major actions, like deleting files, and can control which third-party app integrations the AI can access. So to use scheduled work tasks, users input a task prompt, and they can specify the cadence and instructions, which Claude then executes autonomously. Here's the downside: as long as the desktop app and computer are awake. So yeah, Microsoft's new Copilot tasks can take certain tasks to the cloud, right? But still work with your local data that you give it access to. Claude Cowork scheduled tasks, a little bit different. You have to actually have that computer and that instance of Claude Cowork, the desktop app, running. Because if the computer or the app is inactive, those scheduled tasks are skipped and will resume once the device is active again. So task management, including pausing, deleting, or running schedules on demand, is handled through the app's left sidebar. So who has access to this right now? Well, a lot more people than Microsoft tasks. So the research preview of Claude Cowork is now available to all paid subscribers, including Pro, Max, Team, and Enterprise plans. So let me know, have you guys been using Claude Cowork's scheduled tasks? I have, right? I don't think my poor Mac Studio has slept since OpenAI's Codex app came out like 3 weeks ago. I think I've restarted my computer once, but it's running around the clock, right? I'm not just the, Claude Cowork with the scheduled tasks, but obviously I've been super loving Codex and the new GPT-5.3 Codex Max model. Yeah, if you're not just vibe working around the clock, you're definitely falling behind. All right, in our last piece of AI news, well, at least our big stories, more on the agentic side. I told you this week was all about AI drama in the government and new agentic offerings, because they all just came at the same time, seemingly out of nowhere. This one from Perplexity, I haven't gotten a chance to use it yet, probably this week, but it could be maybe the most impressive. We'll see. So Perplexity has unveiled Perplexity Computer, a new cloud-based agentic AI tool designed to function as a digital coworker. So this new tool stands out by performing complex multi-step tasks using several specialized AI agents that collaborate to deliver finished products. So the cool thing about a Perplexity Computer is it can use, I believe, 19 different AI models from all of the big players. Also, it leverages multiple AI models at once, including Claude Opus for logical reasoning, Gemini for research, other models like GPT-5.2 for more fact-based tasks, and other models for images, video, and rapid subtasks. So unlike similar agentic AI solutions that run directly on users' devices, like scheduled tasks in Claude Cowork, Perplexity Computer operates entirely in the cloud, reducing security risks to local PCs and files. So yeah, this is being built more as a more secure open claw competitor, right? That's been the narrative so far, right? You can see what these big AI companies release and how they market it and how they position it, right? But it's really kind of AI users' reactions to how they're actually using it in their day-to-day tech stack. And it seems like, at least initially, that Perplexity Computer could have legs here, because a lot of people are saying, in terms of capabilities and what it can do, comparing it to OpenAI's OpenClaw. Yeah, that's still weird to say after OpenAI's acquisition in February of the very popular open source autonomous agent technology, OpenClaw. So a little bit more about Computer. The system is capable of creating dashboards, building apps, and generating presentations by delegating different parts of the work to its sub-agents. The downside right now, well, it does require that very expensive Perplexity Max subscription, which is $200 a month. So is this something that could take over the narrative in terms of people's favorite AI agent? Maybe, but I think when users are looking at their subscriptions pile up, right? The $200 plan from Google Gemini, the $200 plan from OpenAI, the $200 plan from Claude, right? I don't know. Is there really room for another $200 a month plan from Perplexity? Again, in terms of the capabilities, once you use all these things, it's like, oh yeah, of course, right? But when it comes to businesses wanting to implement this at scale, or entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, choices can be limited, right, as the different subscriptions start piling up. But regardless, I think Perplexity Computer could be their most important product. All right. More than 2 years ago, I predicted that Perplexity is going to have to pivot hard, or they would get absolutely squashed. And well, they did, right? Both with their Comet browser, which I think is really good, their model console, which kind of, uses this different approach to have multiple models work on a problem at the same time. And now we got Computer from Perplexity. So they are no longer just an answers engine, because all of the, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT do that better, I think, by default. So Perplexity here, I think, with a pretty good offering. So it's something we'll be keeping an eye on. All right. And yeah, if you need to get caught up, FYI, this was a very timely Start Here series episode. Right. So we've been doing the Start Here series throughout, January, February, and March, 1 or 2 of these episodes a week. Because if you don't know where to start in AI, I think this is a great place with that series. So actually, volume 10 was great. Make sure to go check it out. That's episode 723. You can also just go to starthereseries.com. But we included all of these 3 updates from Microsoft, Anthropic, and Perplexity. And just as we took a look from how AI has gone from chatbots to autonomous workers. So if you haven't checked out that episode, make sure you go to episode 723, or just go to starthereseries.com. And yeah, we're probably going to be tackling one of these on our Wednesday show. So on Wednesdays, we do this, putting AI to work at Wednesdays. I'll probably rerun the poll in today's newsletter as well to just see what do you guys want to hear more about on those 3 big ones, because it was actually a pretty close kind of race when we asked you guys on Friday. All right, those are the big AI news stories. Now let's quickly do a wrap with what's new and what's next. So if I'm being honest, just our bullet point roundup is more consequential and bigger AI news than we would have gotten like 6 months ago. But here's everything else. Some big AI news stories that didn't make our, top 8 cut, some leaks, some rumors. Let's get into it bullet point style. Here's what's new and what's next. So the U.S. military reportedly used Anthropic's models in its strike against Iran, despite the recently enacted government ban. So that may not have lasted for long. XAI struck a deal with the U.S. government for classified use. Block, right, run by former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, cut 40% of its staff or 4,000 jobs, citing AI productivity. Google Labs upgraded Opal with autonomous agents, tool calling, memory, and routing. My gosh, Opal's so good, so easy to use. Cursor released cloud agents. Really cool. It checks your work and sends you a video. Meta committed $60 billion to a multi-year AI chip deal with AMD, and they also secured potentially a 10% equity stake in the company. NVIDIA announced very strong quarterly earnings with $68 billion in revenue, but shares fell on AI spending concerns. Meta is close to releasing their AI video editor, Vibes, to compete with Sora, according to leaks. OpenAI hired Meta AI chief Ruming Pang, who was formerly on a $200 million plus package with Meta after Meta poached him from Apple. So now he's been repoached after spending less than a year with Meta. So gosh, this developments are crazy. It's like, NBA players. All right. President Trump is set to meet Tuesday with AI and tech leaders to address data center power costs and infrastructure demands. All the big AI companies in the world, except Anthropic, was notably absent from the list, right? Obviously. IBM shares fell more than 13% after Anthropic claimed AI automates COBOL modernization. Yeah, Anthropic came out with some impressive enterprise plugins this past week. OpenAI expanded GPT-5.3 codex access via the API. So now expect some benchmarks to come in via that, and all the other, vibe coding platforms just got a whole lot better now that they can use GPT-5.3 codex. Anthropic, like I said, added enterprise plugin marketplace that gives admin controls, new connectors, and Excel PowerPoint orchestration. Google acquired Producer AI to expand AI-powered music composition using Lyria 3. Anthropic launched Claude Code Remote Control, enabling mobile management of desktop coding sessions. I've been enjoying that. I don't have to, log on to, my Google Chrome remote desktop on my phone. I can just launch the Claude Code remote control. Claude also rolled out a new plugin to connect Slack and Claude Code. Microsoft introduced a sovereign cloud tool to enable offline secure AI infrastructure operations. OpenAI introduced GPT Real-Time 1.5, improving voice command accuracy by 10%. Notion launched custom agents, and Google added some pretty impressive templates for VO. My gosh, that was a ton. So if you spend hours every single day trying to keep up with what's happening in AI and you feel like you're barely treading water, stop doing that. Number one, read our newsletter every day. It takes like 7 minutes. And then join us on Mondays as we break down the AI news that matters. That's it. That's a wrap. A very busy and impactful week of AI. These are obviously some storylines that are going to continue to develop this week. So make sure you do go to our website at youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.